All right, guys. So on today's agenda, we're going to be going over the seller script. I really want to make this a workshop, so I'll probably talk for a little bit and kind of review the script with you guys, and then I want everybody to break up into groups and practice the script. If you already know the script and you're very confident that you know the seller script, then you can practice your listing presentation with someone as well. So just by a show of hands, guys, who's familiar with the SQS script? Who's reviewed that? Yeah. Okay. Who feels like they got the seller script down? Like, you know the script, you got it internalized, you can talk to a seller and you know like the right questions to ask. Anybody? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
No? Yeah, Shri? Blanca? Yeah. Okay. So I was reviewing our SQS and I made a couple little small tweaks. I just added something to it. I'm going to call it the SQS 2.0. And I only just added a little section at the top. And so I'll show you guys that right now. So you guys can see how this will make sense. So what I want to make sure is that when you guys talk to a seller, it's not just about the script, right? We know the script is really a framework, right? The script is an outline to ask the right questions. But I think it's important that you understand the entire objective of talking to a seller and you understand what are the value points that you can give to a seller that would make them want to meet with you, right? Because if you don't know how to articulate that part, like, you don't call a seller and just say, hey, let's book a listing appointment. Listing appointment is our own internal language, but to the seller, it means something different, right? And so I think to be good at booking listing appointments, doesn't matter where the lead's coming from. If the lead's coming from Zillow, if you meet someone at an open house, a referral, you need to know what your value is to a seller. You need to know, why would this seller want to meet with me? What are they going to gain from our meeting, right? And so what I did is I put this down, just a quick little reminder so that you can use this as talking points when you are talking to any leads. And so number one up here, what I added was just this top section. So your goal of talking to a seller is to set a home selling consultation, right? You can call it consultation, you can call it a strategy, whatever that might be, right? But I wouldn't call it a listing appointment, right? I wouldn't say, hey, Mr. Seller, do you want to set up a listing appointment? Like that, they don't know what that means, right? You need to say it in terms of what is beneficial to them. You want to set up a home selling consultation, a home evaluation. Do you want to set up a home selling strategy session, right? Using that type of language is going to elevate the importance of why we need to meet, right? And then the 4 points I put right here, if I had to just summarize what is a seller going to gain from meeting with me, it's these 4 points. Number one is we're going to understand your goals and what's important to you in this process, right? So if you guys have gone through our listing presentation, a lot of emphasis is on understanding their needs, their goals, and what's important to them, right? Because that gives you the keys of how you're going to lead that conversation. We're going to walk your property and we're going to give you honest feedback on how to prep your home for sale, right? Is that valuable to a seller? If someone's thinking about selling their property, right? Wouldn't they want to know, like, what do I need to do? What's the best way, right? Next one is overview of the market conditions, recent sales, and what your home can sell for, right? That's important to a seller, right? They want to know, like, hey, how much can I get for my property, right? Or what's happening in the market. So we're educating them on what they can sell for. And then the last one right here is discuss all your options for selling and see what makes the most sense for your goals, right? Notice how I didn't say anything about, like, I'm going to show you why I'm the best listing agent. I'm going to show you why our team is, you know, the #1 team, blah, 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 and why you need to list with me. Notice how none of that was on these 4 points. Why? Why didn't I put that there? Because they don't want to hear that. Why else?
They want to know that you're there listening to what their needs are.
Exactly, right? They don't want to hear that. They want to know that you're listening to what their needs are. At the end of the day, right, most sellers don't care about how many homes you sold, you know, to a certain extent. They don't care about if you're ranked #1 or #3 or #5. They don't care about that, right? In fact, that's not as important, right? What's important is like, hey, this is what I need as the seller. These are my plans. Who's going to help me get to where I want to get to? Who's going to help me solve this complex problem of selling a home, right? That has a bunch of different steps and all that. That's what's more important. So what I would focus on when you're talking to sellers is just really emphasizing those things. This is all about you, Mr. Seller. This is all about what's important to you. This is all about reviewing your options. This is all about educating you on what's the best way, right? When I understand what you need, then I can lay out options and see how those can help you figure this thing out, right? And so I think just knowing this part right here, guys, up here, and the value to the seller, that's really half the battle with booking a listing appointment.
Is this a script available on the drive or?
Yeah, it's available on the tools page. I just did this right now, so I'm going to upload the new version. You guys have the SQS, just the regular one. It just doesn't have this part, right? I just added that because I was looking at this. I came up with the SQS a few years back, and I'm like, what's missing from this, right? And I think what's missing is that you guys need to be trained on how to articulate your value. Because all the other questions are just like standard questions, right? Hey, when do you want to sell? What's the condition of your property? All that. That's all standard, right? That's like the LP mama, right?
I feel too, also when you're on the listing appointment, articulating your value isn't a certain verbiage. It's you interacting and connecting with what their needs are.
Yeah.
It's a simple conversation. And it just flows into articulating your value.
Yeah.
How you're gonna help.
That's a great point that Blanca brings up. It's not so much about following a certain script. It's really much about connecting with the client and getting in tune with what's important to them and what they need, right? They have a problem. If someone wants to sell a property today, that's a problem, right? And there's different levels to that problem. Some people have complex issues. I got to sell, I got to buy, I got to move out of state, I got to do all these things. Some people just like, hey, I'm just selling, I'm going to go rent. It's like, and my house is ready to go. Most of them are not like that. 90% of the people we meet with, there's some sort of hurdles and obstacles to get that property to market and get it to sell, right? Whether it's renovations, whether it's tenants, whether it's timing, whether it's another transaction that's connected to it. There's always some sort of hurdle. I don't think it's very, very rare that I've sold a home that was market ready, where I just only had to take photos and put a sign, and they were going to sell, and then they were just going to go rent, and they already had a place to move to, and the money was just going to go in the bank. Easy peasy, right? I don't think I've ever sold a home like that. All of them had like some sort of strings attached to them, right? And that's what you guys got to understand. So take the approach of not a salesperson, take the approach of an advisor, of a consultant, of someone trying to ask the right questions to understand their needs, and you being the person that provides solutions, right? Regardless of what your agenda is, right? What's our agenda at the end of the day when it comes to this? To get the listing, right? But that should be the second agenda, right? What's the first agenda? You said it, right? Fiduciary to your client, right? If someone's hiring me to sell their home, my first agenda is I need to help them get what they want. I need to help them do what makes sense for their financial goals. And through that process, I pick up a listing and I earn a commission, right? But your number one agenda when working with the seller is what's important to you? What do you need? How can I help you make that happen? In the process, I get paid for doing that, right? It's not like to just slam someone on a listing appointment, right? Like, hey, let's just get the sale and sign the listing and throw it in. Let me be a closer, right? That's what people, right? I'm a closer, right? No. That's not the way real estate works, right? It's all about client first, right? And when the client can sense that you're doing that, the resistance goes down, right? When they know that you care about them, then they give a shit about you, right? And what you have to say. But if they can just sense like you're trying to convince them one way or another, they're going to pull back, right? And so you got to remember, selling is a long process. It's very, very rare that you'll meet a seller and sign a listing on that first appointment. It's very, very rare. Even some of the best listing agents. We had a listing agent panel here with 4 or 5 like top listing agents in our area. Jordan Mott, who is one of them. Even him, he sells a lot of listings, right? He's been doing this for a long time, and he's very, very good at what he does. And he even said, he goes, most of my listings I don't sign on the first try. He goes, I go meet them, I go over their options, I help them figure this thing out. He goes, I go over the listing agreement, I let them understand, how it's all going to work. and then I tell them, hey, think it over and let me know if you want to move forward with this. Right. And this is someone who's doing, 40, 50 listings a year in our market, in this Silicon Valley. Right. It's just because it's a big decision. Right. It's not like buying a home, right? It's not like you meet with the buyer, you do your buyer presentation, they sign the loyalty agreement. Like those happen a lot faster, right? Selling, it's like multiple steps, multiple things. There's a lot of stress that sellers have, right? So if you know that, then you just take it easy, right? Like don't put your agenda aside and say, how can I help you? How can I help you figure this out? And not only think that, but also say that, right? And that's the big thing is no one's going to know how valuable you are unless you're able to articulate your value, meaning you're able to say it in conversation, right? Value that's not articulated is not going to be known, right? So if you don't explain why you're valuable, if you don't show them why you're valuable, you can't just assume that they know you're a good agent, right? No one knows you're a good agent until you walk them through the process and actually start showing them how you operate. Okay. I'm drilling on this, guys, because I think that's the most important part of all of this, right? And I'm going to show you an example right now, and then we'll go through the script a little bit. So Maudi, I'm going to pull up a call that Maudi did, and I'll just play the first couple minutes of it because it's a long call. But I want you to hear the approach. I think it was a very, very good call. Chrome tab. Okay, so Maudi got this lead from our Zillow seller campaign back in February, and he booked the appointment. I know he's still going back and forth. He's still working with this potential seller. All right, let me know at home, guys. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear this.
Hi, Rav.
Yeah, hi. Who's this?
Hey, Rav. My name is Mauricio. I got a message saying that 3 o'clock was okay to give you a call. Is this a decent time to chat?
Yeah, sorry, man. I totally got wrapped up in what I was doing. I remember now.
No worries, no worries. So I did get your inquiry. It looks like we are considering making a move on our place here on Cornish Drive in Fremont.
Yeah.
Okay. I got to ask, what has you wanting to make this move? A lot of people want to move into here, not too many want to move out.
Hold on one second. Yeah, that's a great question. We've owned this house for 30 years, man, and all of our kids went to school. They've used all the schools up, right? And we've outgrown this house, and I've outgrown the neighborhood. That's number one. I've always wanted to sell this place for the last couple of years, just wait for the kids to get situated with schooling and such.
Okay.
Now that they're all done, but last year I started my business from scratch, and I didn't think I was going to hit this many road bumps, but yeah, we went into it a bit. We're in a financial drought right now, so and yeah, I know it's temporary. It's just one of those things, but it's like I say, okay, God's put us in a situation where He's trying to kick out His house and make it happen faster, and we've got a fair bit of equity in this property as well, and just one of those things. I'm like, okay, let's go do something next, and yeah, that's where we're at. Did I answer your question?
No, I really appreciate the feedback and transparency. So just from what you're telling me, it looks like we did start a business, but it looks like we're running into some roadblocks with the business. Is that kind of what we're saying?
No, it's just yeah, there's a shit ton of roadblocks. It pisses me off. It's just one of those things where it's like the bureaucracy of it all slowing things down. Right now, my pipeline, I have over 60,000, and none of it's coming through just because of stupid little shit like document or, it's just stupid. Oh, it pisses me off.
No, I hear you.
Yeah. So it's just the way it is, man. It's just one of those things where everything has to be signed in triplicate. If you do a DocuSign and your assistant misses the freaking the DocuSign certificate of compliance thing, then it gets pushed out a day, which lands on a weekend. Now it's an extra week that has like just shit like that, man.
No,
And so,
it sounds just like the business that I run because I have a real estate business, and if you miss one day, man, it could push a whole week out sometimes. So, I definitely feel you on that one. It's being a business owner is very, very you got to have thick skin and you got to be very patient, but any little thing can really throw us off, from our target. So I definitely know kind of, what that feeling feels like. So, I'm definitely here to help you out, Rob. It definitely seems like, we're wanting to explore these options. Like I said, a lot of people really, want to move into this neighborhood and not very many want to move out. Have you considered other options, instead of selling it, maybe, renting it out or probably, pulling money on it or anything like that?
I have thought about renting it out, in silence, walk through the house to see it being rental. Number one, in California, because I was a landlord over here at one time, in California, I don't think anyone really cash flows positive with the properties that they rent out because these houses need constant upkeep. And they're to me money pits. Yeah, you can write it off. It becomes tax deductible, all that, blah blah blah. But you're not cash flow positive. It's more of an equity play. And if you are cash flow positive, you're eking out maybe $100, or you've paid the whole house off, and now you're netting, $4,000, $4,500, whatever these things rent for. I've not paid the house off, right? So it's one of those things where it's gonna take more money out of my pocket to kind of maintain this property. And number two, you asked if I had pulled equity out of the property. I have, and we use that equity to do the renovation work on some of the house. I mean, it's not renovated, but we put a new HVAC system in. It's got a new heat pump, HVAC. It's actually the top of the range is what I have in this house. It's all flash.
Oh, nice.
And all new duct work up in the attic. So it's a proper relocate. So I moved it from underground to above in the attic. Everything I look at now, this thing needs money. The kitchen, the bathroom, I'm like, the floors, you name it. For the exterior, it needs money, man. It's a monster. It just needs constant feeding. This is my game plan. You caught me rambling, man. I'm sorry, but
no. It's okay, man. I want to hear everything.
Yeah, so the game plan is to sell off, take what I can as far as net proceeds, convert that into trust deeds, and I have access to trust deeds right now that are paying 15% per year, and use that cash flow to alleviate the financial pressure on our household income, and without dipping into my principal, that I've invested. That would, number one, stabilize our business that also obviously needs money to grow as well. But at the same time, we'll rent. And what I'm going to do is obviously we have our plan and God has His plan, but I have it so that my corporation rents, and then I pay rent to my corporation, which is a tax write-off to me.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, that does make a lot of sense. How we're gonna kind of game plan it to do it that way. So, yeah, if I was you, I'd probably be looking into the same ideas. Okay, so we definitely have a plan in mind. And then you said you're gonna go rent after.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know if this would make any sense right now, Rob, because this is our first conversation, right? But would you be totally against inviting me to your place and just having me take a look at it, kind of give you my opinion, and then just kind of talk about all of our options before we really make that big decision to make the big change?
No, I've got nothing against it, my friend. Who's your sales trainer, by the way?
My sales trainer?
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. I've been, I do have one mentor, right? And he pays a lot of money for coaching that he just spills on to me as long as I'm an open book to absorb everything. So I'm very blessed to to have that. I'm definitely learning a lot, but I've been doing this for about 6 years, and I've just been trying to grow every single day, and here we are.
No, you're good, man. You're good. I like it. You know, would you have anything against me coming over? That's like a straight freaking Chris Voss close. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From never split the difference. Always get to the know.
Hey, you read the book, huh?
Yeah, well, we're in business, man.
Yeah, no,
All right, I'm gonna stop right there. Good job, Maudi. I think Maudi was on earlier, but I was listening to that call. Good job. Let's give it up for Maudi, guys. What are your takeaways, guys, from that call right there?
So I can go, right. So here's the thing, right? What you typically not see people say that, hey, have you considered renting, etc. But just that conversation helps build a relationship wherein, hey, you're selfless, you're not in here for the listing, you're looking out for the best for the client, right? And I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, that definitely stood out, right? What else, guys? Anything else stand out to you guys?
He listened. Him and he's reading the room, and based on that, he's moving forward in the call.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't actually, start picking up presentation or anything. He said, actually, let's see whether it even makes sense to,
Yeah. Really listening to the call, really just reading the room, not pitching anything, just really like trying to understand where the guy's coming from, right? What else you guys got?
Yeah, the client did all the talking.
Yeah, who talked more on that one? The client, right? And that's what you want, right?
Yeah.
Because when the client talks more and you're not talking, what do they feel like? They're important. You're listening to me. You care about what I have to say. And then he even said, hey, who's your sales trainer, right? You're really good, right? You're really good. But Maudi didn't he did do good, but he didn't do anything crazy where you're like, oh, that was a crazy move. What he did was he just was human, and he like just connected and just listened. He cared, right? Which is why he was really good, right? So what I want you to take away is you don't have to be this guy that can talk and use all these fancy words and all that stuff, right? You just got to be a good listener, right? And then feed off of what they're telling you, right? So that they can say, hey, this guy cares. And then when the time is right, then you insert. And then he inserted the appointment in a very strategic way where it was just really, hey, would you be, I forgot the way he said it, right? But, would it be out of line or for me to, maybe come by and take a look at your house and just go over all your options before you even decide to do. He did a takeaway. Like, hey, I don't really want to list your house, but just to go over your options before you even decide, right? If this is what you want to do. And then by him saying, well, hey, have you thought about just keeping the property and renting it? What does that show the seller? Yeah. He cares more about the seller than himself, right? Exactly, right? So really, really good job, Maudi, on that call. I didn't get to listen to the whole entire call. I listened to probably the first 10 minutes or so, but based off that, guys, that's how I want you guys to approach all of your calls, from a very consultative standpoint, from really listening and really getting in tune with the seller. Let me see here. So the script we'll look at. Because it's not really about the script, it's how you conduct the call, right? Less about the script, more about how you do the call. Okay, so what you need to understand from everybody, right? And sometimes it's going to come by you asking the question. Sometimes it's just going to come in conversation where you're checking off these boxes, because if the seller's talking, a lot of times they reveal all the answers to the question, right? So motivation and timing, right? Why are you deciding to sell your home? And then if you can try to understand when do you want this to happen, that kind of gives you a time frame so that you can make a recommendation. If someone says, hey, I'm not looking to sell for a year, right, because my kids have to graduate or whatever, your approach should like really, really pull back. Hey, and then you should lean into the fact that he's a year out. Hey, you're a year out. That's still a lot of time, right? So, and then you can make recommendations. So what I recommend in the meantime is let's just get you some information so you can start planning this thing out, right? Not like, hey, let's get a listing agreement signed, right? Like if you do that and they're a year out, like, I told you I'm a year out, right? But if they're 3 months out or 6 months out, a lot of things can, that can go by fast. And if they got to prepare their home for sale, those things take time, right? So if you're 3 months out, then we should start talking now, because depending on what you need to do to get this home for sale, that could take a couple months, right? And so, you know, do you want to have your home sold in 3 months, or do you want to get it on the market in 3 months and start the process then, right? So those are things you got to clarify. What's the plan, right? What will happen after you sell? Are you wanting to buy another home? Where do you want to move to? Why are you moving there, right? Really find out, like, what's the game plan, right? Condition of the property. He didn't ask for the condition of the property, but the guy started telling him that things need to be fixed. He's done some renovations, but, you know, he's like, there's other things that need to be done. So now Maudi can know, okay, there's probably some work that needs to be done to get this home market ready. Mortgage. He didn't ask about the mortgage, but the guy said he still owes money on the property, right? So Maudi can go back and, hey, by the way, how much do you know you guys still owe on the property roughly, right? Give me an estimate of that. And are you going to buy a new home? This guy said he's going to rent, so he doesn't necessarily need the money to buy the new home. If he said, hey, I'm going to buy a new home, well, hey, do you need the money from this home to buy the new home? If so, then there's different things we need to talk about, right? Strategy on how to sell and how to buy. We didn't get all the way to the end, but you want to understand, do they have an idea of what their home value is? I always like to ask that question, because that kind of gives me an idea of what their expectations are, right? Hey, by the way, have you checked how much your home is worth online? You know, Zillow, Redfin, any of those sites, right? Or do you have any idea of what your home is worth? Well, yeah, it's worth 2 million because the guy next door sold for 2 million, right? My house is nicer than his, you know, or like, hey, no, honestly, I don't know. I haven't checked it. Decision makers is important as well. Is there anyone else, right, that's making the decision with you? This is probably a big one, guys, because if there's husband and wife and you only meet with the husband, what's he going to say at the end of that conversation? Let me talk to my wife, right? So rather than you going out there to try to shoot your shot with just the husband, always try to set that up with husband and wife, right? I'd rather you not book the appointment and say, hey, when's the time when I can meet with you and your wife? Because I'm sure she's going to have questions, right? I'm sure she's going to want to know about this process. And I'd rather make it efficient and just, you know, go over all your options together, right? You always want to try to do that, right? Maudi, question?
Yeah, so just wanted to add to that one. So with that specific situation, the guy Rav, he was very, very motivated to sell, but the wife was completely against it, right? So at the end of the day, I was like, look, man, I can't convince you or your wife, right? That's a decision you guys have to make together, right? But I am here to help you guys out along the way. So for that one, he's trying to convince her to sell and show her all the reasons why, right? So I told him it just doesn't make sense to make anything happen right now, right? But I broke everything down to them, and that's, you guys decide on your own. But we're still back and forth with him. He's still trying to talk his wife into it. So I don't know. Yeah. He's committed 100%. She's like 100% not. So it's kind of a battle they're going through right now.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So that's important, right? Like, you don't want to spend all this time, energy, drive to a property and you're thinking, oh, I got this hot listing opportunity, right? And you go there and like, they're not on the same page. So that's why you always want to ask, hey, is there anybody other decision maker, right? Anybody else on title or anybody involved in the decision-making process? And then right here, how do they feel about selling? Oh yeah, my wife, she's ready to sell too, right? We got our eyes set on retiring, or we already know a property that we're looking at or a neighborhood we're looking at. Like, we're ready to do this. Okay, great. So now I know I can really try to go after that opportunity, right? And just because they're not on the same page of selling doesn't mean you shouldn't meet with them either. You just need to know that this may not be a deal right now. But I would still go out there and give value, right? Because maybe she has to come around, right? You know, or maybe they got to talk amongst themselves, but it's still worthwhile to present the options. And you can ask him, hey, Mr. Seller, looks like, you know, you and your wife are not on the same page, right? Do you still think it's valuable for me to come out and at least go over your options? And then you guys can kind of talk amongst each other. And he might say, nah, man, don't waste your time. He knows his wife better than you do, right? Or he may say, yeah, I still think it's worth it. I still think, you know, if she sees the options and then, you know, her and I can chat, okay, great. Then, you know, I'm open to coming out there, right? And then appointment, going in for the appointment. Hey, based on all the information that we talked about, right, that we discussed, I'd like to set a time to come to your home, go over your options, you know, with all the decision makers. You know, we could walk the property and see what's the best selling strategy for you. You know, I have tomorrow at 2 or I got 4 p.m., you know, and then now you're coordinating an appointment. These other two questions, I would say these are kind of bonus questions, and you really have to read the room if you're going to ask these, right? Depending on motivation. If it's someone who is like ready to go, like, you know, they want to sell soon, then I would ask these. If it's someone who's still further out and they're more just in the exploration phase, then I wouldn't ask these. So interviewing other agents, if they're like, yeah, you know, we're all going to sell, we're interviewing 5 agents. Okay. Then you want to know if they're interviewing 5 agents, right? So, hey, do you have any other agents you're speaking to right now or plan to interview? Yes. You know, I'm talking to you and I got 3 other ones showing up. So now I know it's going to be a different type of battle, right? And that's only going to happen if they're trying to make a decision right away.
I have a question. How do you navigate like a situation where, like, for example, like in Los Gatos, my father's neighbor, like really elderly, right? But the husband passed away. And now it's just the wife living in this really large house in Los Gatos, which they think potentially they might have to sell, right? But it's kind of a sensitive time. How would you like go about that setting?
So Arya asked the question, if, you know, there's a husband and wife, husband passed away, wife, they're elderly, still live in a big property. They're probably going to end up selling or doing something. You have to figure who's the decision maker. It may not be, though. They may have like someone handling their affairs. It's probably their kids, right? So who's handling your affairs? Who's helping you with the decision-making process, right? And so that's something where you getting in with, you know, whoever's handling, like if it's in a trust or something like that, whoever's the executor, your relationship needs to be with that person, because that's the person who's ultimately going to make the decision. That's hard to do, just to be quite honest, right? Because if my parents own a property and I'm the one that's going to make that decision, I might already have my go-to realtors that I work with, right? Even though you know the mom, but if the mom's not making the decision, so it just really depends on who's the decision maker, right? It could still be the mom, but that's what you'd have to figure out. And then those are the people you want to talk to. Closing question. Hey, if when we meet, you like everything we have to say, we agree upon the, you know, price and marketing plan, are you ready to get the process started, right? This one is more to kind of gauge motivation, right? You're only going to ask this question if you know their timeline is very soon, right? And you're kind of just like, it's a feeler question. We're like, hey, you know, are you guys ready to make something happen? You know, when we meet, everything sounds good. There's no right or wrong answer to that. It's just kind of gauging where they're at, right? You can choose to ask it or not, but you need to read the room, right? And you need to say it in a way that's not super aggressive. That's what I would recommend, right? But I think there is some value at asking some of this because it kind of gives you a sense of just where they're at, right? So these 2 last ones are kind of bonus depending on the situation. Any questions, guys, on this? Okay, so here's what we're going to do now. My goal is to role play, right? So those of you guys that are here, just kind of role play the script, get some practice on it. Those of you guys that are at home, you may want to just role play it with yourself. I think recording yourself, right, is really good. If any of you guys want to maybe jump on a call together, right, you can do that as well. Let me see. Who on the call right now is available to role play with somebody else? Like if they called you on the phone, you guys can role play it together. Those of you guys are at home. Maudi, Brendan, Amaya, anybody else? Okay. So what we'll do is this. I'm gonna why don't you guys just role play it here on the line, right? I'll just turn the volume down because you guys will probably hear people in the background. But you guys are welcome to just role play here on the line. So maybe Brendan, you say the script with Maudie, then Maudie, you say it with Brendan, and then, I mean, we got like 20 minutes. You guys should be able to take like 5 minutes each to kind of go through the script, right?
Can I
Yeah.
add something in it? So if Mari and the other person, Brandon is doing, so we can listen it instead of pitching our separate, so we can have 2 calls at a time. So 2 people, 2 groups, so we can have more information, like more
So
way of learning.
we just listened to Maudie's call already earlier. I don't know if you heard, if you were on the call
Yes,
yet.
yes, I did. But my instead of 2 groups are talking loud with each another, 1 group talk and other people listen to it. That would be a great experience. That's my suggestion.
What I want though for this is I want you guys need to practice getting the reps in, right? You need to practice more doing than listening, right? Because there's so much classroom you could do, but the only way to get better is to actually do it and mess it up and then have someone give you feedback. So I would rather, Zyla, you call Amaya on the phone, right? And then you and Amaya role play it together, you know, and then Brendan and Maudie, you guys could role play it here. I think you're going to get more value out of you saying it out
Amaya,
of
can you call me, please? I can play with you.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have my phone number?
Yeah, I will ping you on Slack. I will get it.
God, thank you. Bye.
Okay. Let's do this, guys. I'll put the link to this right now in Slack if you guys want this to have it in front of you. How do we do this? Let's see. Share. Anyone with the link can view only, so you won't be able to edit it. You'll just have to make a copy. So everyone, seller SQS 2.0. And the scenario is going to be like the same one we heard Maudie, right? This lead inquired on Zillow. They want to sell 123 Main Street. You're calling them back like, hey, I got your information. Looks like you inquired. You're thinking about making some sort of move on your home. Okay. So you guys buddy up, break up into groups. 2, 2, 2, 2. We got Maudie and Brendan. We got Zyla and Amaya jumping on a call. Those of you guys who couldn't role play, guys, just set something up, guys. Set something up or record yourself doing this.
All right, you ready, Maddie? Enrique, you ready? Is it too loud for the speakers? For everyone, or?
I want you booking that appointment. This is practicing booking that appointment, right?
Maddie, you still here?
I was reaching out to property on Main Street.
Hello, who's this? Hello, hi, this is Arias, and I'm a local realtor. How are you doing today?
I want to be real John.
Maddie, you here?
Really hard for my client in your neighborhood, and I was just reaching out to see if you were ever interested in putting a selling for the right price.
I mean, I don't know if right now, but maybe, I'm not sure.
Okay, Maddie's not in the chat anymore. So there he is. I was just gonna give you a call.
Go from there. What area is right?
I'm just gonna
You have the script. You need the script in front of you, bro. We're following the script, right? Not freestyling. Make sure you're following the script, guys. Have the script in front of you, not freestyle, okay?
If we stay in the area, we're gonna downsize. You know, it's just whether we stay here.
Yeah, how about you make it like not a cold call? Saves like a selling.
Yeah. So Mark inquired. You got the Zillow lead. 123 Main Street. You got an inquiry saying he wants to sell. It's not a cold call. Yeah, you're calling back. Hey, I got your inquiry. Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like a great reason. I mean,
Hello, this is Arya Souls with EXP. We actually got your seller inquiry here on our systems. How you doing today?
Not bad, thanks.
Hey, so we got your inquiry for 123 Main Street. I just wanted to inquire why you decided to sell your home.
Well, we're retired and kids are all moved out, so we're thinking of maybe getting something smaller and area that's a little more affordable.
Okay. And how soon did you is the home sold?
We're not really in any type of rush as long as we find the next property.
And if everything doesn't make sense, what will happen after you sell? Are you going to buy another home, or what do you like to do?
Yeah, we want like a retirement home. We were kind of looking at the Sacramento area. It's affordable. There's lots of recreation stuff.
Okay, yeah, so Sacramento definitely is a really great area out there. I have a couple buddies out there.
She's right.
If you don't mind me asking, can you tell me a little bit more about your home? Have you done any upgrades or anything like that?
Yeah, we upgraded when the kids were in high school, so that was maybe, 5-10 years ago. We updated the floors and the kitchen and the bathrooms, a lot of the major.
At this point, I mean, you're very up for 10 years.
Okay, is there anything in particular that you see for selling?
Let's kind of just check out the home.
The roof is getting kind of old, but I think for the most part, it's okay.
Okay, and on your home, how much do you still owe on your property?
I think it's probably maybe like around 100,000.
Is there a time you guys prefer?
Okay. And are you thinking about using the proceeds of this, like sell this home first to buy it?
We may not need to. We may be able to get a without selling the home.
I mean, you mentioned 20 years.
Okay, cool. So, how much do you think your home?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a mortgage.
Well, it's not all the estimate thing, and it's around like 2.5.
2.5?
Yeah, at least that's what it says on the estimate. I don't know how accurate those are.
Oh, okay. So have you ever had a home evaluation?
No, I haven't.
Upset.
Okay, so how much? Is there anyone else on title with you, like any decision makers?
We'll just
All right, I'll be out there 5:30
How does she
tomorrow.
feel about
Let's kind of chat a little bit further.
This is actually more of her idea. She's the one who wants to get into another neighborhood.
I've done it before.
I guess I'm very good too.
Okay,
I feel like
that sounds great. Based on like all this information, I understand at time to come to the home and go over your options with all the decision makers. We can show you the best strategy for selling at the highest price and give you a realistic evaluation once we see your home. You have to let 2 or 4 p.m. available. Which one works best for you?
Yeah, probably the later time, like 4 works better.
4 p.m. Okay, cool, great. Just a quick question. Yeah, agents you're speaking with, or do you plan to interview?
Yeah, and I mean,
Haven't really thought about you the first person we talked to.
Cool, great. How will you decide what criteria and how will you decide?
Equity there, so it's not.
That's a really good question. I guess we just have to get a feel for when you come out and give us that you're honest.
Okay. That sounds reasonable, So if when we meet, we like everything we say and we agree on a pricing and a marketing plan, are you ready to get the process started?
So, I mean,
maybe not right away, something that me and my wife are going to discuss the time.
No, I mean, it exists right now.
Would love to get the information still.
Okay, great. So I'll go ahead and I'll
No, do you want to go?
yeah, tomorrow and see you then.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, this is John.
Give each other feedback, guys. Give each other feedback, okay? Honest feedback.
How many times have you gone over this?
I really don't want to sell it.
Just now. Yeah, so I mean, I would just get more comfortable with having like.
Okay, so your wife
conversations,
finished.
like, yeah, it's a totally different script. So I would just get more interested in somehow figuring out how to integrate it into a conversation instead of just bullet pointing. But other than that, you got all
I'm
that.
attached on the whole, so I mean, we just can't afford it.
If your wife can't do
All
that.
right, I'll give you.
No, no, I.
Hey, is this,
Yeah, I mean, that's my parents.
Yes, sorry.
Hey, Aria, this is Mark, with PRG. I was just reaching out. I got your inquiry here in my, email about selling your property on 123 Main Street.
Yeah, for,
Does that
from
sound
the
familiar?
next day.
Yes, I have been like considering putting my home on the market.
I mean,
Okay, what's kind of brought you to this consideration? Why are you considering this at this time?
I've lived here about 30-something years now, and just maybe just ready for a new chapter, new location, just a breath of fresh air.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Wow.
I mean, is this something you've been thinking
Oh,
about for a
ton
while?
memories.
I really love California. I don't want to get out of here, but maybe relocate somewhere else. Maybe a little bit less hustle and bustle. More local environment.
If
Okay,
you're
well,
right.
no, I love that area. Is that the main area that you're considering relocating to?
I guess just less city hustle and bustle. It doesn't have to be more retail, but it could be Santa Cruz County. Just a little bit less hustle and bustle.
Okay, sounds good. And just curious, Aria, what's your time frame for wanting to do this?
I wasn't necessarily in a super rush. I've been here so long that I'm not itching or dying to get out of here. But like, if the right opportunity presents itself, I'll make it.
Okay. And if you don't mind me asking, are you retired or what has you wanting to get out of here?
Yeah, I'm retiring and I'm gonna. I would like to go to a little bit more of a quieter area, just more relaxed, maybe potentially a nice big backyard that I can throw out on the weekend or something.
Okay, sweet. And then just curious, are you the main decision maker on this, or are you moving with a partner, or what's kind of the
Yes.
main decision maker? Okay, so you're the only one on title for this property.
Yes.
Okay. And then just curious with that next property, because I always like to try to solve plan C before plan A.
Out of the Bay Area.
My job is obviously not to make almost. What's kind of obviously you want kind of like a more relaxed area. What type
Other
of,
than you,
like, what size property?
I mean, the kids.
I guess I would say it really depends. If I get something in a rural area, like maybe in the mountainy area, Scotts Valley, in those areas, it could be potentially bigger. But if let's say I'm like in more of a
Just kind of
beach
go
town
over.
vibe, like let's say Santa Cruz, I might be okay with having a little smaller.
Okay, so it sounds like you're pretty flexible depending on what you want. What are like the must-haves? Like, is there anything that's specific, like when you're searching for properties that you're really
Just how
looking
much
for?
you want to explore?
I want to be in a more or less hustle area, but like I don't want it to be completely remote. At least I can have a little bit of like shopping and retail stuff that where my life would still be somewhat easy if I needed to get like everyday items such as food, like
Gotcha.
items
You
that I
don't
need
want to
to
be out in the middle of nowhere where there's no reception, it sounds like. Yeah. Okay, sounds good. All right, well, it sounds like we'll have to get a better idea of what exactly you're looking for and explore different options to kind of narrow down some. Yeah, okay. And then just curious, kind of getting back to the property you're trying to sell on Main Street. What type of condition is the property in? Like, have you done any recent renovations?
Yeah, we did a renovation about like 4 or 5 years ago, so it's fairly, fairly recently done.
Okay, and like, what type of things did you do when you renovated?
Remodeled the bathrooms, hardwood floors throughout, recessed lighting, remodeled the landscape, the backyard.
Wow, it sounds like you guys did a lot. Are you sure you really want to move from this place?
Well, you said 1.5.
Yeah, maybe it could be like put work into it now and hopefully get some money back.
And then just curious, have you explored all your options for this property, like potentially leaving it as a rental? Or
Yeah, but I might just, depends on what happens. I might use this proceeds to go do that way. I might just, okay. I might have flexibility. I might, actually, yeah.
okay, so it sounds like you do need to sell the home in order to buy the next property. marketing tactics that we use to help you get top dollar?
Yeah, that's fine.
I have some time available in the evenings this week, either Friday or Saturday after 4. What day would work better for you?
Let's just do Saturday at 4.
Okay, perfect. And then just curious, are you talking with any other agents at this time about this transition you're about to do?
Not really. I think I might have acquired a publicized, but nobody really has. You're the first one.
Great. Well, hopefully I'm the last. Let me go ahead and ask one more question for you. If I lay out a great game plan for you and you like everything that I present in the game plan for your property, is there anything that would prevent you from getting started with this whole process? Cool. Well, anything that you'd like me to bring to the meeting tomorrow, any last minute questions or anything you'd like me to answer when I come?
No, we'll have like numbers and like
I'll bring a ton of data for you, and then I'll bring some examples of some other properties that we sold and answer all your questions in person.
Sounds
Great. See you tomorrow.
That's what there's a lot.
All right, guys, let's wrap up. Really quick feedback, guys. I'm gonna do just quick feedback, guys. We got 5 more minutes, and then we'll wrap up. What who feels like they did a good job with this, guys? Who feels like they got this thing down? Or what are some areas that you can improve on with your seller script? Let's wrap up, guys. End the role play. Who feels like either I just want some feedback from you guys. Either who feels like they got this thing down, right? Or who feels like maybe there's some areas they need to improve on with the seller script. Give me some feedback of where you feel you stand with this. Or maybe what was the feedback you got from your partner? Just throw it out there. Go.
So the feedback I got is I was trying to make sure that my seller was understood and validated.
Mhm.
So he told me I probably overdid that a little bit much.
A little bit too much.
Yeah. So he said maybe cut back on a little bit of that. Other than that, he said it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. So you feel like do you feel you overfluffed it, or you feel like you just intentionally?
Like validating and everything.
Yeah.
Like I didn't like my background. I feel like I did cut back on it, but I felt like I don't think I overdid it.
Okay.
Because my goal was to like build the rapport and make it understood.
Yeah.
And because he was saying, "Oh, my business is not doing well," I wanted him to understand, like, okay, I'm also focusing on what's best for you, and your end goal is best for your business.
Yeah.
So I'm also going to focus on that. So that's kind of where I was coming from.
Okay.
I think it's kind of just like a read the room type of thing. And
Yeah.
Validation if they need.
Okay. So you can tell by their response, right? So if you're saying a lot of stuff and they're engaged with you, then it's fair game, right? But if you're saying stuff and they're just like one-word answers and they're just not really engaging, if they're not really engaging, then that's a sign that you got to like keep it moving, right? Because you'll have different personalities. You'll have some personalities like me. I'm more like get to the point, right? Get straight to the point. Some other people really like to talk and like they'll just go back and forth with you. So talk to them, right? And so just read the room, right? But if that's your thing, like, I think at the end of the day, you want to make them feel heard. How much you do it is going to depend on how much they're engaging with you, right? So it's no right or wrong. It's just, reading the room. What else? What else stood out? Anybody or feedback you got from your partner?
Dig deep enough into the whole mortgage thing.
Okay.
He had mentioned, what he thought the home was worth.
Yeah.
They've been in it for 50 years. So I didn't ask about a mortgage.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, shit, it's paid off.
Okay.
But at the same time, could have refied it, pulled money out.
Yeah.
Because he was talking about, over that time he was talking about some debt issues he had. So,
Okay.
But other than that, later.
Okay. So yeah, asking about the mortgage is important because then it kind of lets you know what their equity position is, right? If it's someone who like the house is worth $1 million, they owe 900. Okay, well then, right, they're in a different situation than someone who's paid off, right? So definitely throw it in there. You don't have to spend too much time, but yeah, I think you definitely should understand how much they owe. And then this way you could prepare a net sheet as well, right? That'll allow you to be able to prepare an accurate net sheet once you know how much they owe. Any other feedback? What feedback did you get from your partner? What'd you get, Dev?
I would say like the biggest feedback for me was I think the conversation was calm, the energy was correct and everything.
Yeah.
But in general, just kind of being a little bit more kind of intentional with the conversation, right? Just making sure the conversation is more focused towards business rather than just kind of like having like a nice conversation with someone, right? Just make sure you can kind of get more meat out of the conversation.
Yeah. Well, is that, well, maybe explain what you told him. Okay.
I can tell he's done it many times. You know, I mean,
Would he have booked an appointment with you if you were the
Yeah.
seller?
yeah.
Okay.
I would have booked.
Okay. Okay. So just, I think what you're saying is like staying on track with the conversation, not going like into the weeds, right? It's just reading the room too, right? But you can go like, if you're trying to go in a straight line is like you call them and you get straight to appointment, right? It's never going to go in a straight line. It's going to like always go sometimes off tangent. You just don't want to do like a U-turn, bro. Go like to a different state, right? Like it's fine if you like get off the freeway, but then you get back on the freeway, right? But don't start driving to Arizona when you're trying to go, you know, I don't know, to New Mexico, right? You know what I mean? So it's cool to take it, but don't like start like, they said they like Star Wars, and now you're talking about George Lucas. Did you watch the second one and all that? And then like you're 30 minutes into Star Wars, right? Like, spend a minute on Star Wars and then come back, right? So, yeah, because remember, at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're taking it and keeping it business, right?
And I feel like that's something that's like my conversations are good, they're focused, I sound good, I sound like a professional, but I just feel like I kind of get lost a little bit.
Yeah.
So I just feel like that's some feedback that I got.
So the question to ask yourself, right, is what I'm saying to this person, do they feel like I'm an authority in the business, right? By the type of conversation I'm having and how I'm articulating my value, are they saying like, this is someone that could sell my house? Or are they saying, this is just a nice guy or a nice girl, all right? You want them to say like, he's nice, but I know he's good at what he does, right? You want that. Because you don't want to end up in the friend zone, right? There is such thing as ending up in the friend zone with clients, where like they'll talk to you because you're just nice, right? And they're being cool, but they won't do business with you because they don't think you can get them to the finish line, right? All right. Feedback, Maudi, what was your guys' feedback with you and Brendan? What feedback do you have for Brendan? Anything that stood out? And Brendan, what feedback did you have for Maudi?
So for Brendan, I mean, it was pretty good, right? He did miss the property value question, right? But he definitely got it, you know, all the way through to it. What I would say is definitely have the property information up, square footage, just any details you can find about the property, and then have that, you know, to talk about and confirm things like that. But overall, he did really good.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point, right? If you get a lead that comes in and you already know the property address, pull the property up, do some research on it really quick, at least get a general sense of the property. This way, when you are talking, you can use that as ammunition to establish credibility. Like, oh yeah, I know that area, right? You're right around the corner from the Burger King or whatever, right? Like you can start dropping those little things, and that helps create credibility, right? But if you have no clue what the property is like, right, and they start asking you questions, that could backfire on you, right? Okay.
I'll give a quick example. So what you don't want to do is say, hey, like, how big's the house? And they say, well, you're the expert. Don't you have my address? You should have all the information on it, right? So I always say, hey, I just want to make sure I have the right property. So this address here, this is the square footage, this is the lot size. Did you guys do any addition to it, or is that about right? No, that's exactly what it is. Awesome. Cool.
Great point. Those two examples, me asking you how big's the house, how many bedrooms and baths, versus, hey, I looked up your property and I see it's a 4-bed, 2-bath, 2,000 square feet. Is that accurate? Two different tastes that you're going to leave in that person's mouth, right? Like one of them shows like, hey, did you prepare? The other one shows like, man, this guy's on top of his stuff. He knows my property, right? He's done his research, right? You want people to feel like, hey, you know what you're talking about. So yeah, definitely having that information in front of you is going to help you. Any feedback over here on this side, and then we'll wrap up.
I feel Sri did an excellent job on his tonality, asking the right questions,
Mhm.
securing the appointment.
Okay.
He did go off a little bit, but very minimal and back on track.
Okay.
I felt like he could have given a little more value.
Okay.
Just a little bit, but it was good.
So how would Shri give a little bit more value? What's an example in that conversation?
Elaborating more on the feedback of the seller, what they said that their intention was. Maybe just giving a little more resources, like a 1031 exchange. Hey, I have someone that can talk a little bit, because ours was an investment property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in Blanca and Shri's situation, the scenario was an investment property, right? In that case, you can bring up other tools and resources that you have, right? Like, hey, since this is an investment property, I work with a great, local 1031 exchange expert. Have you ever looked into that situation, right? I can get you some information on that, right? Or if they say, hey, yeah, the house needs a lot of work. Well, hey, great. We have a lot of contractors, right, that we work with. So once I look at your property, I can definitely get one of my contractors and give you some estimates, right? So what you're doing is you're providing resources, right? And when you do that, like if you pick up on the cues and you provide resources, that adds to your credibility and your value, right? Which is more reason of why I would want to meet with you. So use those little cues as opportunities to insert tools and resources that you offer, right? And that's just, it's reading the room, right? Okay. Overall, guys, great job today. As you see, guys, this is not like something you're going to get just overnight, right? It takes a lot of repetition. But the biggest point I want you to take away, and I'm reiterating this, is you need to connect with the client. You need to figure out what's important to them, why they're selling, right? Like really understand that, and then really keep the conversation around that, right? Around, hey, here's why we're going to meet. When we meet, we're going to do this so that it can help you figure out this, right? If you keep the conversation around that, like that's half the battle right there. And then when you're going through these questions, like if you only read the script one time, make sure it's like conversational, right? Because if it's just like, feels like you're just hitting a list, right? Like an interrogation, more of a conversation, you don't want that, right? You want it to feel like more of just the open conversation. And sometimes it's not going to go in that exact order. Sometimes it might go in a different order depending on what they've already said to you or revealed. Maudi, quick comment and then we're done.
Yeah, just one little tip, guys. You don't have to wait till the end to book the appointment, right? When you find a good opening, ask for the appointment and then continue with the conversation. I typically just whenever it feels right, I ask for it and then I continue back on the questions and then hang up. But don't do all the questions and then have that awkward question. Hey, can I come over? Like have a flow and then ask it as many times. Well, only 3, right? If after 3 times they still say don't come over, then it's probably not the best conversation. But ask, hey, house is great shape, awesome. When can I come over to take a look at it? Oh, by the way, got a couple more questions before I let you go. Great, I'll see you then.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? Kind of like the ALM. We just go for appointment right away, and then we start asking them their motivation questions. Why can't you do that for this one? Especially if they're inquiring online. Hey, I noticed you inquired online about selling your property. When's a good time to come by the house and kind of go over your options? You could go straight for appointment. Like if you feel confident, like you could try that. There's no right or wrong. Or you can start saying, hey, well, what prompted you to do that? Get the conversation going and then go for the appointment. And then come back and say, hey, before I go out there, I got a couple quick questions so I can prepare. How much do you owe on the property? Anything like that, right? So remember, a lot of it is feel. A lot of it is how you feel, right? And then going in at the right points, right? All right, guys, that's all we got today. Let's clap it up.